So you said they are trying to get to 10,000 pints.
Yes.
Who are they?
Freed to Bleed.
Okay. Is it someone we know?
I don't know. Well, so Do Re Mi,
Do Re Mi. All right.
I think is kind of the one of the masterminds behind the initiative. There's a couple others I think that are kind of plugged in there as well. But yeah, so Do Re Mi I think is the main genius behind Freed to Bleed.
All right then.
Because my understanding is, for those who aren't following the story, so Do Re Mi is a slightly older Respect Pax in Metro, and he decided that the core guys were, once he heard there was this blood shortage, he was like, sua sponte, right? Why wait around for somebody to fix that when I could do it? And came up with the idea of Freed to Bleed, and started creating. I think he was the first. It was at his construction office, I
That
believe.
doesn't mean that he is in contact with all the Freed to Bleed.
I think they just sort of said it's like a lot of things, man.
It's just happening.
It's how the nation. That's how the nation rolls, man.
Yeah, I was really curious. I was just curious.
No, somebody came up with an idea and it starts going everywhere. So,
again, he told me he'd heard that there was a shortage of blood out there, which makes sense.
Yeah, folks are. I mean, a lot of what the Red Cross would collect would happen at like places of work, which no one is going to and haven't been for months, or just big community events, that they would hold and around churches or things like that. Again, people aren't going there and haven't been for months.
Okay.
And so they're just coming up short. So F3 said, who has the cleanest, purest blood of any man? It must be F3 men. So we'll just start. I have no idea. A bunch of alcoholics, but that's okay.
It's a closed system.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's, it is what it is. But apparently we collected quite a bit. There were a number of F3 guys that I saw there. I saw Hollywood there, and Money was there, and Chicken Wing was there, and apparently it came in right behind me was what we now lovingly refer to as WD-40, thanks to Moonshine changing what did's name to whatever he did.
This was also a drinking event, although you did not partake, I'm sure.
No, I do not, because that's not how I roll, but it was at a brewery. I went at 10 o'clock in the morning. There was no one having a libation at that
Any
hour.
libations?
Yeah. But I presume that later in the day, that probably was something that definitely took place. So, but it was good, man.
What had tuckered you out?
Apparently something did. I don't know. Or if I was just, that was just the way life hit me that weekend. They just sort of happened to coincide. But I was not good for much over the weekend. I slept quite a bit.
I heard your interview on COT.
Oh, it was the Jamie Vance.
Well, you were fake. What were they calling you?
Or Dopedo or something like that. Dopedo.
Do Roseboro. Dobo.
I don't even know. Yeah, something like that. The Kitty started calling me Frank Azaria, which is
no, it was funny.
Yeah,
it was funny.
Those guys are good. They're doing good work.
So they ran the BRR this weekend.
Yeah, a bunch of guys did.
I was absolutely sure it was not going to happen. Now I really kind of regret.
I wish you'd have signed up now.
Well, I just after the Palmetto got,
I know. I was surprised that it happened.
I just assumed at some point in time they'd convert it to a virtual. I just didn't want to do another virtual.
The faux Ridge relay or something.
Faux Ridge relay, but I'll be gosh darn, they just toughed it out.
Which, and I know we don't want to get off on a big weird thing here, but just kind of says to me that maybe it's possible to hold events perfectly safely.
Maybe. Well, I think those.
I don't know.
My guess is that the people that live out there in the mountains in the BRR, where the BRR runs, are a little less likely to want to obey.
I will say this:
the governor,
having grown up in that general area of Swabet and parts surrounding, I'm going to go ahead and say that they probably, for those that even are aware that there is such a thing as a COVID-19.
No, they know. They just.
I'd say for those that have the electricity and all that kind of stuff that they even know, they don't care. They have no interest in any of that. Yeah, I'm sure, there's probably more people out there that believe it's a fake hoax from the Chinese government than probably by population than maybe other places in the world.
I don't think I can go that far.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it's just my as a guy who grew up there, I'm saying maybe.
Tell me this, since you're the president of F3 Nation, are there still virtual workouts going on?
There are. Yeah, there sure are. As a matter of fact, I would say probably at least 3 days a week that I'm aware of. Some guys in Ballantyne do some stuff. C-SPAN up in Philly is still doing a couple days a week of virtual because there are still places in America where it is hazardous according to the governance. And so rather than, try and figure out a way to go outside and have to wear a mask or, whatever it is, because they're saying it doesn't matter what you do, you still have to wear a mask. So there's still virtual workouts that are
Okay.
still kind of hanging on and lingering on. In fact, I was just interviewed by a Chicago publication, online publication of some kind. I don't remember the name of it right now off the top of my head, but they asked to do an interview, and they asked, how did we adjust, with the whole COVID-19 and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, we largely didn't, like we still work out outside. We just did it in smaller groups,
right.
as, according as it was, and we just followed local regulations and just kept going. And she was like, but didn't you, weren't you worried? And I said, sure, sure. We want to be precautious and, taken and,
Sure.
and be careful and that sort of thing. But, we work out outside, and that's always in most everywhere that I'm aware of. That has been one of the things that has not been on the list of don'ts. Strenuous exercise outside is actually
it was a don't here
for a little while, but but it was pretty limited in terms of how long it lasted and some of those kinds of things.
About a month.
Yeah, but it was in groups. You could go by yourself, right? I don't think they ever
You can
stopped.
do anything by yourself.
But that was the thing, right? So guys still went alone, or it would be like, hey, we're going to start here and we're going to run distant, from each other or whatever. But yeah. So, and there's still places, again, like we said, that are underneath some of those restrictions. But yeah, so she was kind of amazed that we, how it's all sort of shaken out. And we talked about virtual workouts and, the fact that F3 doesn't really miss a beat. We sort of have a mission, we have stuff to get done. We don't have time to wait for governance to tell us it's okay to do a thing. So we'll just find a way around. And that's what we did. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, on that note,
should we roll the open? That's a good idea.
And we're back. I don't know. That was kind of a weird.
You're listening to 43 Feet, a podcast about leadership. We believe that real leading happens out front, but that means you're probably building the next 43 feet of good road for those behind you while you're running the race yourself. My name is Frank Schwartz, known in the gloom of the early morning as Dark Helmet to my F3 brothers, and I'll be joined every week by some of the greatest leaders I can find in F3 and beyond. We're going to answer your questions, pontificate wildly, teach virtuous leadership, and otherwise attempt to help you navigate the next 43 feet.
So,
because it used to be a more rigorous format.
Well, we had featurettes we had to get through.
We don't have those.
We don't have those anymore. No featurettes. But if we did, I might ask you if you had any butcher's words.
Oh yeah. No, I've just been I'm reading the Perry Mason novels now.
I've seen some of the things that you've
yeah, it's like all these nuggets in there,
yeah,
man.
Solid stuff.
It's crazy. These things were written 90 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Some were written 90 years. Started writing them in the Depression 90
Sure.
years ago. And there's just all this stuff that's still applicable today.
I mean, just as true as could be.
Yeah.
And which I guess just kind of shows.
So I'll just like tweet something out because I'll come to it.
I love it.
Man, that's amazing.
Like, that is a persuasion quote if I've ever seen one. Yeah, I love some of that stuff. Like it's really quite good. It's funny. I guess it just shows either first of all, the enduring truths that you looked at in the fruit bowl and said, look, here's the enduring truths, right? But also the fact that our society is so cyclical in nature in some ways, like this, there'll be a resurgence of certain things over time. And I think we're in one of those now where people are looking for something a little different than what we've been doing for the last 40 years or so.
It's funny too. They're just so casually racist and sexist. I mean, they're just
well, it's 100 years. What are you gonna do?
Well, I guess like 90 years ago. They just really
it was not on the radar.
Not on the radar,
like at all. There was just no concept of wait. You mean we have to treat them nicely? Like I don't.
Right.
Why would we? They're women. Why would we do that?
Well, they treat them nicely, but they treat them.
They
just make these.
Fair. Yes.
They just make these statements like like there's no female jurors. Of course, no female jurors.
Yeah. Well,
they couldn't make a decision. I mean, it's hard to believe it's only 90 years ago.
Right.
They were saying that kind of stuff, right?
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And,
Just stuff that we just today would just cringe.
There's like some tremendous stereotyping. Like,
I'm sure.
This one I just read because like there's 55 of them. I'm like on 5.
Oh my goodness.
this one, and they were talking about. It's like one of the witnesses is a Chinese houseman or something. And he's like Chinese cook.
Okay.
And Perry Mason's trying to talk to him, and the other guy says, he goes, no. Let me handle this. I know how to talk to these people. And he's like, what are you? And he just does this whole. I can't even imitate
It's
it.
like horribly racist
Yeah,
accent.
horrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only kind of that's the only thing they understand.
Yeah.
Like, and they weren't trying to be funny or even they weren't trying to be racist. They're just
No, that's just how
Just
they believed
how they-
things were.
how they believe
Yeah.
things were.
That is fantastic. Oh gosh,
That's crazy.
how far we've come.
Well, I can see people read now. Like, I'm not going to read this because it's so racist, but it was not racist at the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Were they to be released today in some fashion or other, or someone discovers them,
Oh, never. But
then
they're
they'll be
everybody.
canceled or something.
Nobody. They're just casually anti-Semitic, casually racist,
Yeah.
casually,
Like you were back
Like
then.
like people were. I guess
They were.
I guess.
I mean, look, my grandmother, bless her heart, she's long since dead, but would always say things like that. Just those sort of casual things that
Yeah.
you were like, "Oh, grandma, we don't say things like that. That's not how you do that now." What? I just thought, yeah. But,
I've been watching the TV show, the series Community, which I never watched before.
I hear it's very funny.
It's very funny.
I hear it's very funny.
Yeah. I don't know how that got under my radar.
I don't know. Did you ever watch The Office? Did you
Yeah, I
watch
watched
it?
The Office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I hear it's a similar kind of,
It's kind of fourth wall-y.
Yeah.
Sometimes they look at the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I've heard it's funny. My wife watched it and said it was funny. And so I probably should pick that up at some point. But
Yeah. It's pretty good.
I
haven't watched any movies. There are no movies, right? There's no movies.
not really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to, there's some TV shows that have come out though. You have to be, you have to turn your sensitivometer off. But I started watching The Boys about these superheroes that,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I might watch that.
not bad.
That was good.
That would be one that I think you would like.
That's what happens when superheroes act like knuckleheads, kind of.
Yeah, like it's all corporatized, and they're sponsors for everything,
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. So it's really,
Sure.
it's like if superheroes were alive today, okay, not inferring that they were ever alive, but you get what
I
I'm
was
saying.
gonna say, they never really were.
Wait, what? No, but if there were superheroes in our day and age, right?
Yeah.
Then this is sort of like a kind of a look at like what it probably would look like,
Right.
and it's there's some really funny moments. There's some horribly dark things where you're just like, that whole absolute power, and the corruption that comes with it. It's been pretty fun to watch the first few episodes.
okay.
So I recommend that one to you. But it has a lot of language and other such things. So a person who's sensitive to that sort of thing probably would not want to watch it.
And I could see that, different people have different levels of sensitivity. Wouldn't you say, Frank?
I would. People also have different levels of commitment to things. Wouldn't you say? You like that? Didn't see that one coming, did you?
I kind of
Yeah,
did.
What's funny, Pax, is we tend to reach this point in just about every one of these, and they're not rehearsed beforehand. I just sort of show up. In fact, moments before, I read and I sort of prep, and moments before I show up, Dred's like, "Hey, we're on commitment today, right?" And of course, he knows it's just in his head, right? But we always sort of seem to reach this point where I can tell exactly that. Most times, I can tell we're about to transition because the energy in the room just sort of shifts just a little bit. Right? There's just this sort of energy shift. And I know we're about to get into the good stuff. So
Because we've just been BSing up.
yeah,
until now.
it was kind of well. And here's the other thing, and some people never got these about the featurettes, and some people don't get it about our BSing and fooling around beforehand. But some of the things we're trying to do, like why does Dred ask me about my weight, or why was he doing that so much? Well, not because I mean, yes, sure, we're very good friends, and of course he's interested in my life and whatever. He could ask me that anytime. Right. But he asks here because the point is to sort of look and say, okay, this is an example of what we ought to be doing. We ought to be trying to accelerate. And what am I doing to accelerate? I'm trying to just exemplify what we're teaching. Right. So we ask about the butcher's word. Why? Because we're trying to look for leadership lessons in everything that we do. Right. We're trying to see it where we can, because the collection of the stories that we have is what will make us a bit more able to teach and better teachers of what we're trying to teach. Fair?
I like the way you're putting that.
So, it sounds like just Dredd and I BSing. I know there's a lot of guys who are super annoyed by it and want us to, post the time of when they get to the quote unquote real stuff. But the real stuff is sort of all the way through, and it's a little sneaky sometimes. But that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? He asks me these questions, or I ask him these questions because, again, my friend, I really want to know what's going on in his life, and this is a good venue for that. It's kind of fun to see the interplay, and we think we're charming and delightful. Is that a fair statement? We do think that. And is it funny to do a Jamie Vance Roseborough impression? Sure it is. So a little comic relief is fine, but the other thing that does, more guys are aware of Jamie Vance Roseborough, and I think that's a positive thing because I think it's a good example of what an F3 man ought to be.
I would honestly rather hear somebody else describe something I believe in than do it myself. So I'm perfectly happy to hear the same, these things we believe in come out of other men's mouth. More happy.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact. So
means it's working, right?
That means it's working. All right. So commitment, unwavering loyalty to the group, unflinching determination, unflinching
yes,
determination to accomplish his mission. So we talk about a commitment a lot in America, in a way, or in the culture, and we don't really mean what the definition, the F3 definition.
Yeah. So let's back into that just a little bit, because when we think of commitment, a lot of times in the culture, right, and one of our foundational principles is language,
right?
So making sure that we're all on the same page. What Dredd just said was the definition, the F3 definition of commitment. I think sometimes in our culture, though, we think, oh yeah, you make a statement that indicates that you might be dedicated to a cause, possibly,
right?
And that's commitment. Or I commit to do this. Now, whether they actually do it or not is, I don't know that we hold a lot of accountability there, but
so loyalty, determination, two different things. They're related. So loyalty is that like of a fiduciary, where you treat someone else, someone else's rights and benefit, that you place it higher than yourself. That's what a fiduciary is.
Yeah.
So that's what we mean by that level of loyalty. And what we say in the Q source is that it's an abandonment of self.
Right.
Like that's what loyalty is.
And we don't mean just like, and this is something that's been tough for me to, I think, kind of get to over time, is when you say abandonment of self, you don't just mean like, well, if it suits my needs or if it's convenient and it aligns,
sure,
then maybe I'll put myself a little bit after this.
Right.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, it's all the time. It's without regard to your own safety or without regard to your own health, that you've abandoned self. And I think now more than ever, that's just a really rare thing.
It is. Because I think it is completely countercultural and really, in some ways, counterinstinctual.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's, well, of course it is.
Of course it is.
Your instinct is to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why that kind of unwavering loyalty is the exact opposite of what you want to do.
Yeah. And with that, it is also something then, since it is against your nature,
right?
It's something you have to really work at.
Right.
Something you really have to practice over and over and over in small ways so that you get better at it. So then, just like everything else, like,
sure.
So there have to be commitment bricks, right? Or loyalty bricks that we've got to figure out how to lay, right?
Right.
Okay.
So let's take up the other half of that, the unflinching determination. I mean, that looks like a tremendous will to action, doesn't it? Determination.
Yeah. And again, speaking of, countercultural and counterintuitive and counter natural, all that kind of stuff, right? Like I can unflinch until I get hit in the face. And then I'm going to flinch and I'm going to leave. Right? Most of us follow through. I shouldn't say most of us. The tendency, I think, for a lot of people is to follow through until it's a little tougher than I had kind of bargained for. Like, I'm all about mission. Well, until it becomes painful.
I'm feeling a little cynical is not the right word about commitment right now, but I'm feeling a little bit depressed or ambivalent about it. I look around.
Depressed or ambivalent?
No, I mean, I feel, I feel like there's a lack of commitment amongst our leadership, maybe amongst people. I don't know.
A lack of commitment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the word commitment is being diluted to a great degree. I
And
mean,
maybe
people
diluted
say,
as well.
people say commitment. I think they mean like maybe to a marriage at most, but the idea of committing yourself, say, I was talking to a guy the other day, and I said, when I was a kid, I used to wake up in the morning and have this moment of feeling that I was so blessed to be an American, to wake up as an American.
When you were a kid.
Yeah, when I was a kid. I don't know where that came from,
That was amazing. But
I've always felt that way.
Yeah.
It's committed to being an American, and I know everything America stands for. You know, now America's kind of, I mean, we're having these cultural wars, or not wars, but cultural disputes.
I think if you go to some places in America, it kind of looks like a war.
And I'm like, where's the commitment?
Yeah.
You know, when someone says that there's systemic problems with America, that gets my back up, man. I have a hard time holding my tongue and having a reasonable reaction to that. I know as a leader I have to,
But so not
I guess
getting angry.
I guess angry. It
Or-
offends my sense of commitment. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, tell me more. If you can.
Well, I'm a loyal citizen of the city of Charlotte.
Sure.
I'm a loyal citizen of the state of North Carolina. I'm a loyal citizen of the United States, but I also not just loyal, but unwaveringly loyal. I'm not going to say there's not problems in the
Sure.
city I live in, the state I live in, the country I live in, but to say that it's irretrievably broken or that it's not worth defending, yeah, I don't really get that. I don't
Believe that. Yeah.
I don't really get what's behind that, why somebody would say that. It's hard for me to understand it.
Well, and I
Not the words. I get the words.
sure. But the sentiment, the
Yeah, if that's
feeling
what it
behind
is.
it.
Yeah, if that's what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do you think that is?
Why is it hard for me to get it? I don't know. Maybe because I've always been committed. Maybe I always needed to be committed. I don't know. But
Fair.
that's just kind of the way I am. So my loyalty to the nation is such that
The United States nation.
the United States is such that I'm incapable. I'm incapable of disloyalty to it. And it's hard for me to put in words. I'm incapable of attacking its fundamentals.
Sure.
I can criticize things its leaders have done.
Right.
Of course I can. And I can criticize
And maybe should sometimes.
and I
right?
can acknowledge mistakes that the nation has made for one reason or another, but to criticize its fundamentals, what it's about, yeah, I can't do it. And it's hard for me to listen to other men do it and not become, I guess angry is the right word.
Or even if we can soften it some and say frustrated or just
Right.
emotionally involved, whatever
Right.
whatever.
And it's funny because I chose the piece of scripture that backs up commitment a long time ago before we went into this
Yeah.
current state. But what Joshua says is, if you find that serving the Lord is undesirable,
Mhm.
and he's talking to people that are complaining.
Right.
If you find it's undesirable, then choose for yourself this day who you will serve.
Right.
The gods your ancestors served beyond the
Right.
Euphrates, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land we are living.
Yeah.
But for me, as my household, we will serve the Lord.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel that way about my nation and my city, my state. I mean, if you find it difficult to serve this nation, then decide what you will serve.
Yeah.
But I'm going to serve the nation.
Yeah.
And I'm unwavering in that.
And it's not again, it's not saying that the nation is perfect. It's not saying that there aren't troubles. Is that there's not ways in which the fundamental principles upon which it is.
I think
was founded.
service requires criticism.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not.
Well, that's candor, right? I mean,
That's candor. I mean, you can look at it and say this is not right or this is,
Yeah.
Of course.
but that's where I think we break down. Is we have become so self-focused,
Right.
so turned inward that we will serve the mission when it serves us, and no further. And as soon as we feel like it's not giving us what we deserve out of it,
Right.
or what I'm entitled to out of it, whatever this mission may be, we start getting real pissy and moany,
Right.
because somehow I think that we think that our life is supposed to be, cherries and rainbows and unicorns all the time.
Right.
And that's just not the case. In fact, the quote that I like, and I'm going to just butcher it, but a leader of our church, talks about all the time. He's like, look, the harsh reality is that, most putts don't drop, right? Like most car trips are long and horrible and boring. That's the nature of life. And so
Right.
it's not that we want to sit around in misery. It's really more about how do we find joy, which we'll talk about is that next week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Oh yeah. Right. 2 weeks. But, to look for joy and find joy rather than sitting and worrying about the fact that our happiness has been compromised for a few minutes.
Right.
Well,
that's the setting yourself aside. I mean,
right.
you can't be committed unless you abandon yourself. And
So
if you're committed, military, it's easy to see it because you abandon yourself to unit discipline. And it's actually not that hard to be committed to the military because they don't give you any choice.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Yeah. Well, you got two choices.
Shave your head, put everybody in a green suit. Everybody does that.
Yeah.
But when you're not in the military, it's kind of harder to be.
Well, there's no singular place
Right.
to look for mission.
Right. That's right. There's no mission. Actually, you just said it better than I could. There's no singular mission. There's no existential threat to fight against. There's nothing. It's like, so it's difficult. So I think you start turning to yourself. Now we're talking, the courthouse is closed. We don't know when it's going to open for trials again. And I heard some lawyers talking. One guy says, well, we have difficulty with the jurors, because nobody wants to perform jury service anyway.
Sure.
And, we always ask him at that. So there's a reason why you can't serve. All the guy has got to do is say, I'm afraid, of COVID. Right.
Right. Now he's off the hook.
But then I heard a lawyer say, well, I'm not sure I'm ready to return to the courtroom. And I tell you what, I caught myself, but I almost said, then you need to never come back to the courtroom. I mean, if you're
Tell me more.
Well, no, I mean, if you would leave your clients without justice, because you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you, man. I know that's not going to go down well with some people.
No, but I hear what you're saying.
But I just came across this phrase in the book, Perry Mason book I was reading the other night. But he says he's talking to this young lawyer in his office. He says, but you overlook the fact that I'm representing my clients. I'm a paid gladiator. I have to go in and fight, and that's what they hire me for. Anytime I get weak-kneed, so I don't have guts enough to wade in and fight, I've unfitted myself to carry on my profession. At any rate, the branch of it that I specialize in. I'm a fighter. I'm hired to fight. Everything I got in the world, I got through fighting. So I read that. I just
wait. Are you sure you didn't write it?
No, chills went. This was written 90 years ago.
I know, but tell me, Pax, does that not sound like something Dredd would have written?
Well, it's the way I feel,
and that's why I think it sounds like something you would have written.
It's what I feel. I was cross-examined.
You don't just feel that way about lawyering.
Well, that's why.
Finish your thought.
I was cross-examining a witness in a trial a long time ago, like 15 years ago, and the witness was a sitting judge. So he's a sitting judge, but he'd given some legal advice before he became a judge.
Okay.
The nature of his legal advice and what he had told his client was at issue.
Meaning it was different than what he...
No, it was just an issue in the case.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So he's on the stand testifying for the other party, and he had made a mistake in his legal advice.
Back then.
The advice he'd given his client was the opposite of my client, was incorrect.
Okay.
And I don't think that the other lawyer realized that when he put him on the stand. So I got up and started cross-examining him. And about halfway through, the judge in the case realized that I had this judge on the stand on the run. I was pressing him hard,
right,
showing him the statute and pointing out to him
saying,
and cornering him. He started to get defensive, and he starts looking up at the judge in the trial, and the judge in the trial starts backing me up. pushing me back. Well,
Oh, I see. Yeah, not supporting you, but giving you pushback.
because he was trying to protect this other judge.
right, because hey, we're judges together.
Right. So finally, there was this one piece of evidence. I'm trying to get in. He wouldn't let me ask the question, and I made an offer of proof,
Mhm.
which means I said, we got to take the jury out. I get to ask the questions I want to ask, put it on the record so it's on appeal if you want to let it in. So this is what you got to do if there's a line of question and the judge is holding out. So we do it. I just pounded this guy. He just made a mistake.
Yeah.
And then he tried to cover it up and he looked bad. Now he's a judge, before he was a lawyer, but he made a mistake.
Right.
Jury needed
But
to hear it.
that's your job.
Right. So I get that out, and it was relevant. There's no reason to keep it out. And the judge says, I'm not going to let you ask that in front of the jury. And I said, well, Judge, it's relevant. There's no reason not to. And he's just not going to let you do it. So he pulls the jury back in, says the witness is with you. And I just asked those same damn questions again.
Even though he said, I'm not going to let you.
And I looked at the jury while I was doing it, and judge is sustaining objections. He's looking at me. He finally says, one more word, and I'm going to hold you in contempt of court. And I sat back, and I leaned forward, and my client grabbed me by the wrist, and he said, you've done enough. I mean, he wouldn't let me do it. I was bound and determined to do it.
You were going to do it, yeah.
I was bound and determined to do it. I knew I was going to take it on appeal, and the fact that I was going to spend a night in jail, whatever.
It
seemed like it was worth it to me in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Because I'm a fighter, man. That's what I'm paid to do.
Yeah.
I'm paid to go in there and fight. I'm not paid to go in there and, kowtow to some
Right.
judge.
Equivocate.
I knew I was right. And
he knew you were right.
yeah, he was just trying to protect his fellow member of the bar. So that's kind of what I mean. That's kind of the attitude that you have to have if you're committed.
Yeah.
You have to be unflinchingly determined to accomplish the mission. And I was willing to go as far as it took. And it really took my client grabbing me. It was funny how he realized what I was doing.
He saw it.
Yeah, he realized what I was doing. And you know what? The jury did too. And which is what I was.
That's really the point.
Right.
Yeah.
That is really the point. And I think we've lost that to a great degree amongst trial attorneys in my business. And I don't think this COVID is helping any.
No, unfortunately, and again, not political statements or anything like that, but we're in a situation where I am seeing it. Look, take all of the work stuff or the whatever out of it. I'm just seeing men choose softer, easier, gentler things in their lives and blaming it on something that they may or may not even really have a firm belief in, but it's convenient to make it easier, to not to flinch, to be able to flinch and to not be determined. And I mean, there's a reason, to kind of tie it back a little to F3, but there's a reason why the workout is hard, the workout is early, the workout is, all of those things, right? There's a reason for all of that. And there's a reason why the first F is first. And if we are not willing to even go that far, what are we going to do when it matters?
I think the same thing.
What are we going to do when it matters? We can't even, and then you take that out one more step and go, we can't agree on masks, or we can't agree on this.
Right.
Folks, if we can't do it now, what are we going to do when it matters? I'm not pleased. I'm worried.
Well, I still think there's an awful lot of people who are capable of being committed if they see somebody leading.
I think you're right.
So, I've filed a lawsuit against the school board in Mecklenburg County to compel, in hopes of compelling the school board to return the students of Mecklenburg County back to public school. Mm-hmm. So Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, the school board has gone with this virtual school thing.
Yeah. And just to kind of set the table a little bit, just so folks know, the rest of North Carolina, not the case, correct?
Not the case. So yeah,
and,
it's not.
Mecklenburg has chosen this,
and
it is
Mecklenburg, a couple of counties.
Okay, so there's a couple counties, but the vast majority of the state has gone with some other.
That I don't actually know.
I believe that's the case in things that I've read. But regardless,
the governor has allowed the the county school boards to make their own decision, which you should.
Sure. That's why you're not suing him.
So school board of Mecklenburg County has decided not to
Yeah.
not to have actual school.
So it's all virtual. You have no choice in the matter. It's the only option there is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'm representing some parents that don't believe that it's proper.
Mhm.
I'm also a parent of some students.
Sure.
I'm not representing myself, but I'm the attorney, but I don't believe it's proper. I don't think that that's what school is.
Right.
And I don't think that the school board has properly discharged its obligations towards the students. I think it's listened to some teachers who don't want to go back to school
Mm-hmm.
and don't want to teach for fear of their health. And
Or again, or that being the claim, regardless of.
I'll take them on the merits.
Okay, fair.
So, and I know this is going to be a very unpopular thing I'm about to say,
It won't be the first of the last.
but I would say go do something else. Just go do something else. Because your mission, your job is to teach those kids, and sitting in the den doing it over the internet ain't the way to do it.
Yeah.
And if you're afraid, I'm not going to question you,
I'm not going to judge you.
but I am going to tell you to go do something else.
Maybe your time has come and gone.
I
That's what you're saying.
I won't judge you. I will question your commitment.
Okay.
And if a soldier was to say, I don't want to attack that hill because I might get killed, or a lawyer is to say, I won't ask that question because I might spend the night in jail, I would say, go do something else. Because there's something else you can be properly committed to. So in other words, there might be some group to
Mhm.
which you can fully and unwaveringly commit. There might be some mission to which you can unflinchingly decide to be determined to accomplish.
Mhm.
But if you can't, as Joshua says, if serving the Lord
You
seems
gotta choose.
undesirable, you got to choose.
Well, because I think in the next couple of verses, or I might be mixing it up now, but doesn't he say like you can't be in the middle? You got to be hot. You got to be cold. Because otherwise, warm you get spewed out.
Oh, that's
later.
Yeah, that's Revelation.
Yeah,
That's Revelation. Yeah.
it's a similar idea.
It is a very similar idea, and it's a very similar end state.
Yeah.
Which is pretty bizarre now that you pointed out, but that's what the point of that passage of Revelation is, that that you can either be. He's talking to one particular church, which is very lukewarm,
Mm-hmm.
and he says you're neither hot nor cold, and you're going to get spit out.
Yeah.
You got to decide what you're for, and that to me that's the heart of commitment.
So making sure that I'm understanding too, but and hopefully so the PACs understand too. It's not if you don't choose to do in school whatever, that somehow you're a bad person or you're
Nope.
a bad teacher
Nope.
or blah, any of that stuff. All we're saying is, or all Dred's saying is, well, I'm going to say we're saying because I agree with him, is that that's not what commitment looks like. I don't think that there's any teacher that I've talked to that would say with any honesty that they would say, oh yeah, no, virtual learning, way better than in person,
Or as good.
much more effective.
Or as,
Fair.
or as
Fair.
good. Yeah.
Right. And so if you're not determined in some way, if you're just willing to accept and say, well, but this is all we can do. This is, so I don't think, like if you're not fighting actively, unflinchingly toward that end in some way, then that's okay. Like that's not bad.
Right.
But maybe just so that, good heavens, why would you
I
you work in something you're not
I guess
committed
what
to?
I say is you have to choose.
Yeah.
You have to choose. You can come to school and be a teacher, or you can go do something else, but you can't stay at home and be a teacher. And in the same way, a soldier, when called upon, has to march to the sound of the guns, or he can't be a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
He can be something else,
Sure.
and should be.
Yeah.
In the same way, a litigator has to be willing to engage in adversarial confrontation. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
I've known many lawyers who are unwilling to do so. They're trying to find a way around it.
Right.
There's got to be a better way. Maybe if we're more reasonable and all that. I'm like, it's not how disputes get resolved.
Right.
Wars don't get fought unless people fight. Soldiers fight, unfortunately. Horrible
Right.
thing, but true. Disputes aren't resolved. Legal controversies, intractable legal controversies are not resolved unless the adversarial confrontation is invoked.
Yeah.
The trial is had. There's no way around it. And I don't think kids learn unless they sit down in a classroom and have people teach them. And if I would say I have all the sympathy in the world for somebody who says I can't do it.
Yeah.
I said, but then you that means you're not committed. You need to do something else.
Yeah, and that's okay. Then find a thing that you can do.
I think that has to be the way it is. And the reason why I decided to say it today on this podcast is I'm committed to it. And if I were to soft pedal it,
right,
and pretend that I thought otherwise,
then
I ain't committed either.
Well, you ain't walking the walk.
I'm not committed either. And that, that's the hard part about being a leader, is that there's absolutely no way to lead if you're not willing to say things that people are going to disagree with.
Yeah.
And there's going to be consequences to that disagreement.
No, it's very, very true. So in just a second, I know you're going to tell me to go do something.
Yeah, but before we do that,
okay.
And it's just ironic, I was thought and actually prayed a little bit about it, whether to talk about some of the things that I've talked about here, because it is really my obligation to be the Nantan of the entire Three Nation. And I know there's guys who disagree with this, but I don't want anybody to think I lack commitment. You can disagree with me,
sure, but
you can't say that I'm not committed to the course of action.
Sure.
And I have been for quite a while. In the midst of that, and I don't think he'd care that I'm saying he did it. Tango Delta, after East Tango Delta, sent me a text. And he's like, I don't know if you've seen this. I mean, it's literally just happened like a minute ago.
Okay.
And I'm, looking at my watch. Yeah. I'm like, oh, what the heck is that? And it's an opinion. It's a court opinion that he must have just come out.
Is TD a lawyer?
What's that?
Is TD a lawyer?
No,
oh.
no. He's an investment banker. So
anyway,
it's in the it looks like the Western District of Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay.
Or Pennsylvania. But somebody filed a lawsuit up there in federal court contending that the governor and I guess the Secretary of Health or something had some of the restrictions that they had were excessive, which is similar to the lawsuit I filed here, but it's a pretty long opinion, but I skipped to the end, but this is what the court said. The court closes this opinion as it began by recognizing that the defendant's actions, and the defendant's the governor, at issue here were undertaken with the good intention of addressing a public health emergency. But even in an emergency, the authority of government is not unfettered. The liberties protected by the Constitution are not fair weather freedoms in place when times are good, but able to be cast aside in times of trouble. There is no question that this country has faced and will face emergencies of every sort. But the solution to a national crisis can never be permitted to supersede the commitment to individual liberty that stands as the foundation of the American experiment. I'm choked up reading this. The Constitution cannot accept the concept of a new normal where the basic liberties of the people can be subordinated to open-ended emergency mitigation measures. Rather, the Constitution sets certain lines that may not be crossed even in an emergency. Action taken by the defendants cross those lines. It is the duty of the court to declare those actions unconstitutional. Thus, consistent with the reasons set forth above, the court enters judgment for the plaintiffs. This is a judge named William S. Stickman. Was a United States District Court judge in the state of Pennsylvania. So, that but the solution to a national crisis can never be permitted to supersede the commitment to individual liberty. That's what he wrote. That stands as the foundation of the American experiment, the commitment to individual liberty. And I suppose underlying all the commitments we're talking about, and hashtag commitment here, that's what we're committed to, or we should be committed to as Americans. Like I said, I had a very difficult time keeping an open mind when people, even people I love, criticize my commitment to individual liberty, because I joined this judge in proclaiming my commitment to individual liberty. And in the name of public health crisis, which we're obviously in, there's some lines that just cannot be crossed. And this judge, particularly judge, found that the lines crossed by the governor of the state of Pennsylvania were intolerable. And he reasserted the commitment of the nation. I mean, I can't think of a better way to put it myself. And I don't think that it's, we say accidents or whatever, coincidences, or what I used to believe in when I didn't believe in God. But the fact that that came across in the very midst of me talking about the very same thing and not expressing myself very well, because that judge said it better than I could ever say. So I'll tell you this, Dark.
Yeah.
I remain committed to the concept of individual liberty for which this nation stands. And I'm going to continue to fight for that, regardless of how many people say one more word coming out of your mouth and there's going to be this or there's going to be that. I'm just going to keep doing it because I have unwavering loyalty to the nation, and I have unflinching determination to see that mission carried out.
Can I tell you something without getting weird? I hope. I've been accused of a lot of things, as you can imagine, right? Oh, well, you think that because Dredd thinks that, or you're a fanboy, or you're this, or you're that. And, all that's fine. I don't mind. People are welcome to say whatever they're going to say, but I just hope you know that from sitting across the table, brother, I'm right there behind you.
All right, brother. Thanks.
Yep.
All right, man. Go do some good.
Can't help it.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for listening to 43 Feet, a leadership podcast. If you have questions about F3, leadership, or anything else, write to us at questions@43feetpodcast.com. Tweet us at 43feetpodcast, or find us on Facebook at 43 Feet. While you're there, give us a follow. Also, if you like this podcast, share it with a friend, rate us, and write a review. It really does help others find us. Until next time, we'll be out here in the unknown, the uncomfortable, the difficult, the 43 feet out front.